Sweat saves blood. We live with an intensity I have never before experienced. I have a brand new uniform, and I am very proud of it. I learn a few military songs, which I warble with an atrocious French accent. The other soldiers laugh. They are destined to be my first comrades in this place. The combat course is the most severe physical challenge I've ever experienced. I am exhausted, and several times fall asleep over my food. But I feel marvelous, filled with a sense of joy which I can't understand after so much fear and apprehension. On the 15th of September, we leave Chemnitz and march 25 miles to Dresden, where we board a train for the east. Russia. Russia means the war, of which, as yet, I know nothing. For most, this appeared to be a rite of passage, an initiation into a new life. I felt, remembered Siegfried Knappe, on the bus trip to his training center, as if we were rolling right out of my childhood and into a completely new adult world. The great majority of recruits took neither a written nor a mechanical aptitude test, but underwent only a physical examination. During this examination, however, which was very thorough, the review officers carried on conversations with the recruits designed to provide them a picture of each man's general character, his spiritedness, his reactions, and if necessary, to allow them to weed out any who were obviously mentally deficient. Since the Wehrmacht concerned itself more with character, such emotional and temperamental qualities as willpower, mental stamina, courage, loyalty, independence, and obedience, than with aptitude, or, mechanical dexterity. Its procedures aimed less at establishing intellectual or mechanical abilities than at discerning a recruit's personality, his behavior patterns, his general demeanor, and his resiliency, his ability to cope, his physical stamina. Although Martin Peppel claimed that a great show was made of these psychological tests, they were actually quite simple. Alfred Wessel, who originally had hoped to join a Luftwaffe unit, recalled them in a greater detail. We had to do exercises, we had to do calculations, time and distance calculations, we had to write essays, and to take dictation, he remembered. And then the most interesting was that they took us by bus through Osnabrück, and then into a house. Then we were all led through the house and into the cellar. From the cellar, by elevator up to a loft, and from one room to another. Then we went again by elevator to the cellar, and then we were asked questions. That was in the cellar, in a dark room, no windows. You are now here. There's the compass. In your opinion, in what direction does St. Peter's Kirk lie? And where have you seen this and that? And so on, and so forth. We were totally unprepared for this. Wessel and his cohorts had to act and react as quickly as well as they could. And that proved to be the point of the exercise, for the review officers were less interested in answers to these questions than in the attribute displayed in the men when confronted with the need to make quick decisions, to show initiative, even if they were wrong, in a confusing and disorienting atmosphere. For the Lanzer, the process of basic training marked the first step on the journey of being transformed from civilian to soldier. It was a difficult step for most, with many assaulted by pangs of homesickness, loneliness, and bewilderment. It involves a considerable mental and psychological strain to leave one's family and be deposited into a situation where one's identity and all ego are stripped bare and subject to new conditions. Basic training, although harsh, was a means to an end. Its purpose was not to punish men, but to acquaint them with such things as weapon handlings, tactics, discipline, and as well to instill certain group values, loyalties, and a spirit of camaraderie. It aimed ultimately at control and motivation on the battlefield. Training also served to hone the instincts and skills of the new recruits, to condition their reflexes, and to provide the security of learned routine in moments of crisis, and a certain habit of obedience. A single virtue when the soldier encountered the numbing shock and paralysis of battle. Well, that makes sense. If you freeze up, you're fucking dead. Ideally, training also promoted group pride as it bound men together into cohesive units, and as it persuaded them that they actually were soldiers, an integral part of a powerful organization. Their confidence grew and their functionality grew along with it. The cohesion and fighting effectiveness of the army to which he belongs, for any common soldier, will depend on his training. And very few modern European armies at the time were more effectively trained than the Wehrmacht. Its ability time and time again to cobble units together out of broken fragments and to use them effectively owed very much to the extensive, realistic, and continual training given to the Lanzer. Friedrich Gruppe recalled the sense of excitement in his small town in the Harz Mountains in the months and years after the National Socialist rise to power, an enthusiasm aimed particularly at mobilizing the young. We were told emphatically that you should serve a community, to live a life of comradeship, to be harder and ready to fight, to carry the will within to greater deeds. Early in the morning at 4 a.m. out of our beds to a cross-country run with early morning exercise, then washing up, breakfast, ceremonial raising of the flag, and already by 5 a.m. marching to the labor site in work overalls with spades at our shoulders. Now, here, Gruppe is describing his time in the labor service, which was just a program for unemployed men. But you could see how this would have transferred him well into military service. Now, some liberals say that, oh my God, this was the only reason that the labor service existed, was to drive young men into the army. Well, no. It was because they needed jobs, and they needed, to try and, get their lives back together. And I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't understand why other people today have all that much wrong with it. I've lived in those kind of conditions. In like fashion, Karl Fuchs underwent the transition from the Hitler Youth to the labor service, and in his letter to his parents he left a similar picture of a basic routine. After the cleanup of our barracks, we have a hearty breakfast of rye bread and coffee. At 6:30 we start with drill. This normally lasts until 9. From 9 to 10 we have classroom instruction. After that comes a second breakfast and a cigarette break. From 10:30 to 1 o'clock there is more drill, lighter drill. Then comes lunch. From 2 to 3 we are busy with general cleanup of the area. From 3 to 4:30 we have physical education, mostly marching and jogging and sigging through the forest. In the afternoon activities we conclude with more classroom instruction and socializing. Dinner is at 7. Believe it or not, this is what young men used to do when they didn't have video games. This community of working men is something unique. From all sections of society we come together to wrest higher yields out of the soil through hard work. Despite everything, probably just because of our burdens borne in common, the feeling of identity grows rapidly. We're experiencing here what we understand to be Volksgemeinschaft. and we're putting our conception of National Socialism into concrete action. We are all the same in our service for our people. As members of such, no one is asked his origins or his class, whether he is rich or poor. Snobbery, class distinctions, envy, idleness, all are left out in the street. This is the way from I to we. This has been a reading from Frontsoldaten by Stephen G. Fritz. I think there's a lesson here. Draw your own conclusions. Feel free to disagree.